back for episode 17 of the Teeing Off Golf Podcast, hosted by the Chicago Tribune. I'm John Borneman here, as always, with Matt Harness. We took a week off last week, Matt, just because of the British Open, and I think, like at the U.S. Open, we were busy watching it on TV. And I think we'll talk about the British Open in a little bit, but first we should just right off the bat introduce our guest who's going to be with us for the entire episode today, Herb Gould. Should I say former Sun-Times golf writer? You're quasi-retired now?
Semi-retired Sun-Times sports writer.
Welcome to the podcast, Herb. Thanks for coming on.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
We're at Herb's house. He's gracious enough to host us. We've been at about 12 different locations.
It's a traveling podcast, which I think makes us more versatile.
Yeah. But yeah, well, let's talk about the British Open. Just ended. Zach Johnson wins in the 3-4.
Don't you think we should get Herb's credentials out of the way first?
Sure.
Herb, why don't you tell us a little bit about your Sun-Times career, your golf writing career?
I'm rusty.
We have to establish why Herb is here. Otherwise, he's just some guy.
Well, I think readers probably, I would hope, know. I worked at the Sun-Times as a sports writer for 30 years. I was there for 5 or 8 years before that as a news side reporter and copy editor. But the main part was covering college sports for about 25 of the 30 years. I covered the Blackhawks for about 5 years early in the 90s. Was privileged to see Notre Dame win the national championship in '88 and went through a lot of ups and downs with the Illinois program for the last 20-something years.
Very few ups, mostly downs. Right?
Yeah, very much. And then did a lot more golf as time went on. Went to several U.S. Opens, a couple Masters. I was at Muirfield for Phil Mickelson's historic British Open win 2 years ago. Wow. And just a bunch of PGAs. So, golf is a passion, and writing about it is right there with the passion.
And so how long have you been semi-retired?
It's going on about 2 years.
Uh-huh.
But I still end up doing a lot, giving the guys on the Bulls and the Blackhawks a break, helping out on college sports. But yeah, I left late in 2013 from the official position. But really, a lot of people don't even realize it because I still end up contributing a lot, and I love it that way.
And we should also say he's a teammate on the Writers' Cup, Illinois side.
For the Writers' Cup, right?
That's right.
Illinois versus Wisconsin.
So not only does he write about golf, but he helps play. We won last year.
We won. I've been through a lot of those incarnations too. I've played on almost all of those, and they've been a lot of fun. I mean, it's a great camaraderie, as you guys know. We love beating Wisconsin, and we love trying when we don't beat them.
And I understand you've been working on a blog lately too. It seems like you've been traveling a lot. You're just back from Ireland here, where you've been.
That's
playing
right.
A lot
That's
of golf.
my main. One of my main endeavors right now is
tell
HerbGould.com. I do a lot of golf writing on there. The most important stuff on there to me are the series on Scotland. We've been to Scotland twice and Ireland. I'm just working on the latest installment. The Ireland stuff we just got back not long ago. There's 1,000 words on every golf course that we go to with a lot of photos and some video. And we've played all the, not all, but most of the big ones in Scotland, starting with the Old Course and Royal Darnock and Turnberry, and a lot of little obscure ones, which I would recommend to people to take a look at, because when you go over there, some of the most fun courses are the courses that you might not have heard of. And the same way with Ireland. So yeah, there's a lot of golf writing on HerbGould.com, my website.
Gould.
That's right.
HerbGould.com. So if you've been over to play the Old Course and the course over in Scotland and Ireland, I guess that makes sense as to why we've got you on here with the British Open having just finished with Zach Johnson's victory. I assume you were watching closely on even though it was a Monday finish.
Yeah, it was a great tournament. I mean, obviously the Monday finish was great. I thought the Sunday setup was really good. And the Old Course is just such a classic, and having been there, I really recommend anybody listening to get there because it really is everything you expect and more. It was a great tournament, especially with the whole Jordan Spieth quest for a third straight major going on. In a sense, it was a shame to see him come up short, but in another sense, it was just great drama. I mean, if you love watching golf, it didn't get any better than this Open.
Yeah, no, I did. So John has played
Yeah.
the old course. You've played. I've never played it. Have you ever hit the hotel? Have you ever put a ball on the balcony
No, actually, I'm very proud to say that I only played it once, but I did par the road hole.
Oh, wow.
But I carried my own bag there. My wife had a caddy, and our friends had caddy. But they were telling him to take it over the O on the sign, and I heard that, and they kind of were trying to tell me that, and I said, I don't do that kind of stuff. You guys have played with me. I hit one of my little cut tee balls around the side, and then I hit, I forget what it was. I punched something up the right side, right to the front, and the pin was way back in the corner, and I threw a pitch up there, and it rolled to about 2 feet, and I tapped it in for par, and avoided the road hole bunker,
Just
all that angst.
That's essentially how these guys were playing it on Monday. Nobody seemed like could get there in two because they played way over into the other hole.
They were also seemed as though they were
500 yards.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't play it from 500
Not quite
yards.
that far.
But they were also. I mean, I guess they were playing it smart. They were laid up almost to that front part of the green. I don't think I saw anybody challenge that hole location because, of course, the bunker is right there,
and it's on a diagonal. There's not a whole lot of room, and those are firm greens. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of those holes they don't hit the ball to the hole, from a distance. They run things up because those greens are so firm, and there's just no way to gauge rolling a ball up to a diagonal green where everything falls off. I don't know if you see it on television. It not only goes over to the road, but there's a drop off of several feet between the green and the road.
Oh,
so
you definitely can't tell.
It's like 3 or 4 feet. You're really now all of a sudden you got a really problematic shot.
I'm trying to think of the only player who didn't play it short of the green there that I can even remember in the last couple groups was Zach Johnson in the playoff when he was left. He was left of the bunker, which of course was not intentional.
Right.
But everybody else was sitting right there in the front or on the right side, which is the Herb Gould chipping area.
Yeah, just leave it down there, no doubt. And 18 now, we played 18. I parred 18 also, so I was very happy to finish even on those two holes.
I had a very different experience when I played. I played 17, and I hit a drive that I thought I had cut off enough of the hotel, but I didn't. So I drove it in the left rough. It went through the fairway. So my next shot rolled into the road hole bunker. I then chopped it out onto the wall. That's easy to do. And I believe I ended up making double bogey there. Then I got an 18T where you have, 150 yards to the left because you have the entire hole and then the one hole to the left of you. And I bounced it off a building across the street and into a car.
There you go. Well, that's funny because my wife bounced it off the building, but it came back inbound.
Oh, nice!
And we actually have a video of that on my old course blog on my website. But yeah, when we were all saying, back in play,
I limped down the stretch there for sure.
Yeah, well, it's hard because you have certain days. I don't know why, but I felt pretty comfortable that day. I birdied number 8, the par 3.
That's Spieth doubled.
He's doubled, but I sculled one right up the walking path. Never went higher than your navel. Somehow stopped 8 feet away. It's just a great golf course. It's historic. If you do go to Scotland, there are other courses that are a lot more interesting in a way and a lot more fun. But because of the history there, you just get caught up in that. And there's a lot of blind shots. Mm-hmm. We played the new course. I don't know if you played there, right next door to the old course, which is also very fun. And you can see a little bit more as you're playing. But if you go to Scotland and you go to like Royal Dornoch, Cruden Bay, those are just phenomenal. They're worthy of hosting a British Open, but they're not really in good locations. They wouldn't work logistically. They're kind of removed, but they're just outstanding golf courses. I mean, Scotland is just so loaded with golf courses. It's unbelievable.
So if you're, based on your history and going over there, what is the best way that somebody could go play the old course? Because I imagine that there's a waiting list. I've heard about, a daily lottery. If you want to play it and you're going over there, is it best to just go over there, jump in the daily lottery, and
Well, that's what we did. They have every September. It's a good question. Every September they have a lottery for the whole year, and people get up. It's about 4 a.m. Chicago time. You get online and you plug in. And I didn't, I didn't do that because we weren't quite sure of our whole plan. But what we did when we got there, it's a 48-hour lottery. I think we got in on a Saturday. No, maybe we got in on Friday. But at any rate, we put in the lottery on Saturday for a Monday time. And they do keep a lot of times free for that. So your odds are reasonable. It's not a lottery in the sense of that it's a 1 in a million shot.
Right.
I think that I forget the exact number, but it might be, it's whether it's a third of the tee times or a half of the tee times, they keep a bunch of them open.
So if you're going to go, say you plan a 6-day golf trip in Scotland, just every day, just keep plugging into that lottery until you get 1 day at St. Andrews. Which
you could do that. It would be a little tricky because you're talking 48 hours and you want to have the rest of your plan. That was kind of our dilemma. And they're closed on Sunday. The old course is not open on Sunday. They take the day off just to give the course some time to breathe and do some maintenance. So you can also go through tour. If you have a foursome and you go through a tour operator, you can do that. There's another great suggestion is there's a book by a gentleman named Alan Ferguson, which gives so many wonderful tips. If you're going to plan a trip to Scotland, he's got everything laid out for you. I think he's got like the 8 different ways you can get a tee time at the old course. You can do that 48-hour lottery. My belief is that if you're staying at a reasonably well-known hotel there, I think that they take pretty good care of the guests for that. But there's a lot of different ways to do it, and you can trust them. Because we walked into town, we didn't have any tee times because we didn't know whether we were going to hit the old course lottery, so we didn't really want to book other things. And we were able to walk up at the new course in the morning or maybe the day before, and we were able to book a time like middle of the day. Mm-hmm. So they have 6 courses that are affiliated with the old course. And then if you go out of town 15 or 20 minutes, you're talking about King's Barnes, which is phenomenal. Carnoustie and all those courses are over that way. It's just a golf mecca. But Alan Ferguson's book is a really great place to start when you're planning a trip.
So when you're watching Sunday, are you thinking about, or Sunday, Monday, are you comparing, where the pros were to your own shots, and what was your takeaway from Monday's final round?
Monday was, it's so different. It's hard to evaluate how they're playing because everybody gets a different wind. Yeah. I know that when we had, I remember distinctly that when we played, we were into the wind on the first hole, which I think is the opposite of the prevailing wind. And everything changes there according to wind. Right. So I'm always interested to see how they play it, but also they play it from such a different distance.
Right.
I just watch to see how they, the choices they make, because I like to hit the low ball. And I know they do, but they also, they're so much better at short pitches and sticking the ball. I mean, there were a lot of balls that were spinning there, which doesn't happen that often. And then to see how they played, the number 11, that other par 3. I parred that one too. I mean, it was I left it way short of that bunker because there's a bunker that really gobbles up everything. And I remember throwing a pitch up and then made sort of a longish putt. But for them, the wind was sideways. The one kid made a hole-in-one on number 11, which I think they said was the first hole-in-one at the Open in years and years, because they don't have that many par 3s, and when they do have them, they're hard to get at. Watching the guys, I like to see what they do and how they play shots, because there are so many different ways. And then you watched, Tiger was just a mess again, and he stubbed some little chip shots, which, you just wonder how that game can have descended that far. But they're playing so different. I remember the Paul Dunn, the the Irish lad,
amateur,
tied
for the lead going into
tied for
Monday,
the lead. On Sunday, I mean, I think it was on 17. He hit like a 4-iron, just 220 to the front of the green, just lasered it. It's a shot that a lot of guys wouldn't even try. Like you said, a lot of plays a layup. And then I just remember Louis Oosthuizen was playing with him, I believe, and they were like, Oosthuizen was just all grins. He couldn't believe not only the kid tried that shot, but that he pulled it off. So that's what you watch when you watch the British Open, is just how they make all those shots go.
I don't think that's a caller for the podcast. That's just a call, the call here at Herb's house.
That's right.
We're not taking calls just yet.
We're not taking calls.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seemed like, guys would gather their birdies on the front nine and make the turn and just kind of hold on to them as they came in. And when the wind sort of shifted, I mean, with St. Andrews, it's truly a loop. It just goes straight out and turns around and comes straight back in. No, back forth and back and forth and back and forth.
And the back nine, I think the back 9 holes tend to be more difficult anyway, because you start with 17, which is the hardest course that the pros play anywhere.
Yeah, I think they were saying it's the hardest one.
Really hard. And then they have a couple of the par 4s are a lot longer, and the par 5 on the back 9 is a lot tougher deal than the front 9 par 5s.
Was it Sunday or Monday? It may have been Mondays. I think it was Monday. Zach Johnson on that par 5 on the back was playing, 550. He hit driver, 3-wood, 5-iron.
Yeah.
I mean, for a professional golfer to have to hit a 5-iron on his third shot after hitting a 3-wood, that tells you about the wind. Because on the front 9, the 610-yard par 5, guys were hitting driver 5-iron.
Right.
So it is, as you said, Herb, it's all about the wind.
Yeah, the wind and the ball rolls so amazingly there. I mean, I remember you guys have seen me play, and I hit we were at Kingsbarns a couple of years ago, and on a par 5, I hit a 3-wood about 240, and it was another one of my belt highs, but it just trundled on up to the green, and the ball just rolls forever there, and it bounces, because they really don't shape the mounds, anything just bumps along. It's fun to watch.
Right.
Is that golf your favorite kind of golf?
I really like it there, yeah, because there's so many different ways to play. You can putt from 60 yards out. You can hit low shots that'll just chase up from way far out, and sometimes you want to do that because of the wind.
Well, it seems as though links golf is like an equalizer for all sorts of players, as you just said. You don't have to hit a high ball. We played, at Rich Harvest Farms, and almost every shot into the green is a carry. So if you don't have a certain kind of game, which on that day I did not have it makes that golf course darn near impossible to play. And so, but links golf, as you said, you can do a lot of different things. It really brings creativity into play. And I've never played a true links course, but I think I would really enjoy, playing that style of golf.
I think you would. It really gives you a lot of choices, as you said, and good. It's just, it doesn't rule out players. We played at Conway Farms yesterday, and Conway Farms is a terrific golf course, but there are places there where if you don't hit it far enough, you're going to have a problem. There are some of those things in links golf. A lot of times off the tee, they'll have holes that might be like 320, but you better be able to hit the ball 180 and straight to get over the mound that sits in between, the tee and the fairway. So they have some of that. Bandon Dunes is a great American version of that.
I have played there. I guess it's been 13 years since I played there. Is that a true one?
Probably still.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Bandon Dunes is a great approximation.
Okay.
If you
I have played one.
Yeah, Bandon Dunes is.
That was back when I was good.
Did you play any good there?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. I shot it in the 70s.
Well, that's awfully good.
It was great. I played with my brother, who at the time was working and living in Eugene, Oregon, and one of his accounts was Bandon Dunes, he was selling Coke. He was a salesman for. So he got
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola, yes. I mean, he wasn't a Coke salesman.
But there are a lot of.
I guess selling Coke should be a little more clear.
There. I played there with Teddy. Actually, we played there after the Pebble Beach Open that Graham McDowell won, and we were out there with Pat Foley, the Blackhawks announcer, and I remember I hit one shot. There was like a really difficult green, hard to get at. And it was sitting up high, and there were bunkers on the sides. And I hit one of my line drives into the hill in front of the stick, and it hopped up to about 3 feet. And one of the caddies looked over and said, "Wow, I don't think he saw the shot. He just saw the result. He goes, you know how hard it is to get at that flag?" And I said, "Yeah, I was brilliant."
So is that a course? I know. Geez, now like when I played. There was only Bandon Dunes and Pacific Dunes. They have a bunch now.
Yeah,
is that a facility that can host a major tournament?
I don't think so because it's just too remote for.
It's far. I remember it being
5 hours from Portland. Yeah, you're not gonna.
And even when you get there, I remember it being such a long drive to the coast from the main road that I can only imagine the logistical nightmare it might be to.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect they would have any. Yeah,
but it's great.
But it's a great place for people to go.
How many courses?
I think there's 4 18s, and I think they also built a 13-hole par 3, something short. Tremendous practice facilities. You just stay on property. It's obviously it's a luxury trip, but well worth it.
Mike Kaiser is the brains behind it,
right?
And we were at the U.S. Amateur Media Day last week at Olympia Fields, and he was there.
Okay.
I remember at the final lunch, they made some mention of him. I was too busy scarfing down.
Well, he's building a new facility in
Wisconsin.
Central Wisconsin, a couple hours north of Madison.
It's like what they call the Sand Hills.
I think that sounds right. They're building the first course. They've got plans for a second course, and he'll keep building them as demand dictates.
Yeah, he's pretty prolific. But, I mean, just back to the Open, you mentioned Paul Dunn, the Irish, I think he's 22 years old, still an amateur. I don't know. He plays at University of Alabama at Birmingham.
Right.
I don't know if he was a senior going back, but it begs the question. There were 3. He didn't finish in the top. I think he finished in the top 30 at a tough Sunday, but it's hard to. He's playing the final group.
He was clearly suffering from some nerves playing in the final group. I think he bogeyed one, chunking his approach shot short of the burn right there in front of the green. Bogeyed 2. He did birdie 3, which I thought maybe that would level him off a little bit, but I think he finished at
shot
6. I think he finished at 6 under for the tournament, well back.
But three amateurs were in the top 12. I mean, somebody posed a question that I think I was listening to PGA Tour Radio.
One of those amateurs, Jordan Niebrugge, a former podcast guest.
Yeah, Jordan Niebrugge at Oklahoma State or Wisconsin kid won the silver medal. But the question was posed: Are we nearing the time when an amateur can win maybe not only a PGA tournament but a major?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think that it's a testament to how much golf these young people play coming up, that they're ready to play at this level. But that said, to go 72 holes on a golf course that's set up the way that major tournaments are, and even a regular event, I mean, I don't think we're going to see any big rush for amateurs to be winning tournaments. But it's neat to see when they can compete like this, especially at the Open, the British Open.
Which one do you think would be most likely for that to happen?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think the British Open is probably the one where you would see the most of it because, if you get, you have someone like Dunn who's from Ireland, he's used to playing that style of golf. There are all the vagaries of weather.
Someone catches
and
a break.
Where you start, but at the same time, you still wouldn't really expect him to go on and win as an amateur.
I mean, these guys are so good. I mean, the U.S. Open had, I think, 6 amateurs made the cut. One whom was Nick Hardy from Northbrook. You're seeing this more and more, and in a lot of these tournaments, these kids, the only one they can't get into is the PGA Championship. But, I mean, how many amateurs play in Masters every year? 4, 5?
Yeah, to me, that's the Masters seems like a course where, the more you play it, the better chance you have to win. So
I don't see anybody.
An amateur winning that seems unlikely. the U.S. Open is just so tough and such a slog so many years. That, too, just any weakness in your game is going to be just exacerbated. I don't see an amateur winning that anytime soon. So, yeah, the British, maybe. I don't necessarily see that either. But, I mean, as you said, links golf can be an equalizer, and an amateur gets a great break with wind and weather. Isn't that what happened with, not Oosthuizen was not an amateur when he won the British Open, but didn't he got the best weather possible and blew out the field.
Yeah,
right.
Somebody could get a run like that, a perfect run, and that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even see too many amateurs. I mean, I'm trying to think. I was just trying to look. I know there was a Western Open amateur champion 30 years ago, and I'm just looking for his name.
Who won? Phil Mickelson won like the Tucson Open when he was at
amateur.
Arizona State.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree. It was just sort of an interesting question with all these. These college players are essentially semi-pros.
Scott Verplank, 1985, won the Western Open, and
I think he's an Oklahoma State guy too.
Did Phil win as an amateur? Yeah, and
then like 90 or 91.
One of the other guys won out there as an amateur too. It happens occasionally, but
so it sounds like it's happening less now, if anything, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a different world. I mean, the main thing is that these people are, these young guys, college trained, played, are getting good enough that they're going to go on to careers. You see them. I mean, we remember when. Here we go with the brain cramp again. At the Masters, we saw amateur champion, help me guys here. He plays now.
The amateur champion at the Masters?
No, well, he was an amateur. Low man.
Moore?
No. This is what happens. At any rate.
I don't even know.
The guys can play,
right.
So they cut their teeth on these events, and they realize they can play, and then they go on to careers. Justin Rose had a really good Open when he was 17, 18 years old.
But didn't he drop off the map for a while right after that?
Yeah.
Before he finally came back to having a productive career?
And Matt Kuchar, that was the name I was looking for, Matt Kuchar.
That's what it was.
Had a really good Masters, and then we really didn't hear from him for a long time, for years, and then all of a sudden he honed his skills and became a really solid tour player.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a neat part of it. It just it takes a while to really gear your game to compete week in and week out.
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I was just before I forget, when we talked, when I was inviting you to join, you had back at your trip to Ireland. Mm-hmm. Why don't you tell us where you went? But the great story is you ran into the world's number one.
Yeah, the
player.
world's number one. It was our first day out. I had been to the south of Ireland, Ballybunion and Waterville, years ago with some friends. So my wife Liz loves to play, and we decided we would do a northern tour, and we landed in Dublin, and we just went all the way around the north coast of Ireland and Northern Ireland. And our first round, we were at Portmarnock, which is right outside of Dublin. And like the third hole, the starter comes out, and he's got his coat and tie on. He's riding his buggy, which is what they call a cart over there. And he comes up to me and says, Rory McIlroy just went off on one. Would you mind letting him play through if he catches up?
If he catches up.
If he catches up. And we said, oh, yeah, we'd be happy to do that. So sure enough, we got like around to the fifth hole or so, and we saw Rory on three. He was playing with three buddies. He was carrying his own bag, wearing shorts. He had his three friends. Some of them were pushing trolleys, which is what they call a pull cart. And there were 5 or 10 members, older people who were walking. They would drift in and out to watch his game. And finally, on about 12, which is a par 3, I said to Liz, they were about a hole and a little behind us. So I said, why don't we just stop, and then we'll watch them and let them go through. And we did. We played 12, which was a kind of an uphill par 3 into a bowl with a giant left to right wind. And we put our carts up on the 13th tee to the left of the 12th green, and Rory and his gang get there. Rory hit way, way left. I guess he thought that he would bring it back in the wind. The wind never brought it back. and it landed like right next to our carts. So the guys had to move our trolleys away so he could hit his second shot, which he left short because it was a downhill with the wind, and then he chipped close on the third shot, saved bogey. And I actually have a video of that on the website.
Oh, great.
But yeah, that was kind of fun. We saw Rory, and then we told the guys in the clubhouse about that, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, we had Condoleezza Rice here last week." It's a popular spot because it's less than a half an hour from the Dublin airport, and maybe a half hour from downtown Dublin. And there's several other courses right near there. I mean, that was amazing to me. You could go there for a week. We stayed in a town called Malahide, really quaint little town. There's a train into Dublin in a half an hour. Not only is Portmarnock there, but Royal Dublin, the island. There's a bunch of courses. I mean, you could go there for a week and just play golf every day on a great golf course.
Any truth to the rumor that Rory actually ruptured his ankle trying to dodge one of your line drive tee shots?
No, I don't think so. I think my tee shots wouldn't have gone that far. But that was a shame, you know. You hated. I mean, that was how good that British Open was. That it was played without Rory, who would have been a real focal point along with Jordan Spieth. And you know, I thought about it a couple times, and I thought, wow, this Open is just going on, and it's a fabulous Open, even without the number one player in the world.
Did you learn anything about Jordan Spieth as you watched him come up just short, miss his playoff by a stroke for a chance at the third leg of the Grand Slam?
You know, I think the one thing that was interesting to me, I mean, he does it. He does everything so well, and he's so clutch, and he doesn't miss hit. He doesn't make mistakes. You know, he doesn't dominate the way Tiger does, but you just have to admire the all-around game. And yet the one flaw that I think they were pointing out, if you want to call it that, they were saying that he's like number one in longer putts, but when you get into those little mid-range putts, he's
he goes back and forth between putting those short putts, looking at the hole, not looking at the hole. They said, I think what it was is that they said that you know, he's a guy who when he's just rolling it at the hole gets in the way and it goes in a lot.
Yes.
You know, but when he's he needs to make that putt, these short little putts, it gets a little dodgy. And you saw him miss like a mid-range around 17 for bogey. That dropped him after birdieing 16.
That was the one that
he
really
missed that
was
bogey,
that
par putt on 17 that puts him back a stroke behind, and now he has to go to 18 and birdie. And of course, he tries to cut a little too close with the Valley of Sin there and spins it back down.
Right.
Almost made that comeback putt up there, but he left himself in between yardage. He hit it too far left into the one fairway, right?
Right. Said he was between clubs, and you know, like you said, the key miss was on 17 when he had for him, a makeable par putt, on a really hard hole. But, he's just tremendous player all around, and you expect that he's going to be there. He's going to have a great career. And yet he doesn't. It's not like when Tiger was at that point, when he was early on, he hit it farther than anybody. He had a better short game than anybody. We were in awe of Tiger.
He made every
way.
putt.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan doesn't do that, but yet he's just around all these tournaments, and he's going to continue to be because that's how good his game is.
My thought was, when I heard people talking about comparing him to, I think maybe it was Lee Trevino comparing him to Jordan to Tiger and to Jack Nicklaus, and my thought was that he's not that physical specimen who hits these shots that you think no one else in the world could hit. Rory is probably more like that, who hits the shots that one guy can do it and it's him, like Tiger was when he first started. But what struck me in this tournament was just how mentally tough Spieth is. I mean, to come in with all that conversation about the Grand Slam and then to right away throw up a 5 under in the first round or whatever he did, to get off to such a hot start with all that pressure, like it meant nothing. Twice he bogeyed a hole on Sunday, and he's yelling at himself on the green, and I think he birdied the next 3. And on Monday, he makes double, right? Mm-hmm. Yelling at himself again, birdies the next 2.
Yeah.
He just, either of those mistakes you would think would be like, well, that was a great run. Nice try to, win the Grand Slam. Better luck next year. But he bounced back immediately, not just bounced back with a birdie, he stacks them on top of each other. Now he's right back in the mix again.
Well, I was watching the Golf Channel replayed the 2000 PGA Championship at Valhalla, where it was Tiger Woods versus Bob May. But the stat they showed was in 18 majors for Jack Nicklaus. He won by a combined 44 strokes. So that's a little more than 2 per tournament. Tiger won his first 6 majors, now I'm forgetting, but it was like 5 or 6 majors by a combined 60 strokes. I mean, he was just blowing people out. And maybe people got their perspective got skewed a little bit because you're watching this guy who was a one of a kind, but it's really more like what Jack is doing. I mean, people don't win majors. So while Jordan Spieth, like you said, doesn't dominate, I mean, he gets the job done. And I think, this kid, if he stays healthy, and he's going to win 10 majors.
Yeah, he's comfortable with the lead. I mean, that's the thing that I see. You can see other players who are in his generation, and when they're getting close, I'm the one that comes to mind for me is Ricky Fowler, who's a great young golfer and has every shot in the book. Doesn't play doesn't play as consistently. And, he was in the top 5 in all 4 majors a year ago, and you're thinking, wow, this guy's going to win one. But, some of the guys get a little more, they feel the pressure when they're in the lead. Jordan Spieth is not like that, That's the mark. Rory's not like that either. Rory's not quite as consistent.
He's not. I mean, you'll see Rory McIlroy miss consecutive cuts. I mean, Spieth seems to be the guy he's comfortable with the lead, but he's going to always be around the lead.
Consistency is remarkable.
Yeah, he's going to give himself a bunch of chances.
He just hangs around. He's just there.
And it's comfortable is really, it isn't. He's even more comfortable with the lead, I think, than Tiger, because Tiger used to just grab the lead and the opponents by the throat. I mean, it seems odd to think of it now because Tiger's game is so.
You have to keep saying Tiger like he used to be.
Well, not
Tiger now.
Exactly, but I mean, he was the great intimidator. I'm trying to think. Was it Luke Donald who played with him on the last day at Medina at the last PGA that Tiger won here? Mm-hmm. And, you're trying to figure out a scenario where Luke is going to be able to, hang around and do some things. And it was just really hard. I mean, Tiger put on that red shirt on Sunday, and whoever was playing with him, that was going to be add 5 shots to whatever he thought.
Right.
He brought an NFL mentality. And that, I think, is kind of his downfall now because the intensity doesn't work as well in golf as it does in the NFL where Tiger would have been good.
Well, we're almost at the 40-minute mark, and we haven't talked about the British Open champion, Zach Johnson, winning in a playoff over Louis Oosthuizen and Mark Leishman. Impressive stuff for Johnson. I mean, he made everything, like you said, on that Monday. Gets his second career major. I thought it was, I'm not sure. I haven't looked it up. I wonder how many guys win a major, don't win a second one for 8 years, and then win another one. From 2007 he wins the Masters, and now 2015 he wins the British. I would think the more common thing would be to win one and never win again, rather than go 8 years before winning. But
the other part that's neat about Zach Johnson is, and we were talking about this the other day, he is not a big hitter, and he won on the 2 courses that are supposed to be big hitter courses, Augusta and the Old Course, where you just bomb it over all the trouble. And just remarkable wedge play, remarkable clutch play. You're right, we do overlook him because, he's a self-made guy. I think he was like at Drake and not really a great player in college, but has made himself into a terrific player and is a great citizen. As you guys know, he's got that great John Deere Classic background. I think he was even on the board there if he isn't still.
And he came up through the mini tours, a little bit of different approach than a lot of the star
Those
players.
guys have a toughness. Jason Duffner is another one like that. But Zach, he's always around. And it's just a different world now. When I was a kid, I remember watching when Nicklaus was in his prime. And it was Nicklaus and Palmer and Gary Player to an extent. And then there would be maybe another guy or two. Billy Casper had some moments in the 60s, but you didn't have this depth of field that you have now, which explains why, there could be such a gap with Zach Johnson between major wins, because there's just so many guys that can win on a given week. I mean, I was at, Graham McDowell won at Pebble Beach, and he's got a really good game. He's got a game that's sort of similar to Zach Johnson. Mm-hmm. And you don't think about those guys as much because there's so many of them, and they kind of pop up and go down. Justin Rose is another one. He's a guy you got to admire his game tremendously. The other part I was thinking about was, we went into this tournament thinking about Dustin Johnson, and now we come out of it thinking about Zach Johnson.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can even throw a guy like Louis Oosthuizen into that mix. I mean, this guy, wins that British Open at St. Andrews in 2010. Mm-hmm. He was in the mix of the U.S. Open this year, and once again at the British Open.
He very nearly won the Masters.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that could be somewhat overlooked as well. I mean, when his game is on, he's
and he's not.
He's as good as anybody.
Small in physical stature and a great swing, and he's clutch. He's comfortable with the lead.
Right. I mean, these
and you could go on the list. I mean, I really think that Jason Day is going to break through one of these.
I would like to see that. He seems like a good guy. I mean, you say that, but you don't really know these people. But
he seemed just beside himself after that.
Each more of these losses, he's building up, a few more scars because he's really taking this hard, coming close, and then you start to realize he's 27, he's still young, but you wonder how many more chances you have, and every one that slips away, you wonder how much that's going to affect. And the next time, it hasn't seemed to do it just yet. Dustin Johnson the same way. I mean, this guy's been close, a bunch of times, and I don't know what happened to him this third and fourth round. I mean, he just
that last half of Sunday and then into Monday.
The Sunday day was easy. I mean,
he was the only
Open standards.
He was the only one shooting over par.
Yeah.
Right. I think with Dustin Johnson, his long game, his full shots are just so phenomenal. I think at least you can look at him and you can say, well, he needs to figure out how to become a better putter. And it wasn't like he's a bad putter, but to win championships, you've got to make some of those 15 and 20 footers, and he's singeing the edges on. I mean, at Chambers Bay early in that Sunday round, he was just right on the edge with 5 or 6 putts. Mm-hmm. If 3 of those drop, he's not worrying about that one on 18.
Yeah.
And, you can say that about a lot of guys, but I think more so with him because Dustin Johnson's, he puts himself in position for those putts because of the way he hits the ball to get
Well, you talk about guys running things up around the greens at St. Andrews. Dustin Johnson wasn't doing that. For the first 2 days, it was driver, sandwich, driver, sandwich, driver, wedge, driver.
And when they restarted, I remember the guys were criticizing him. He was one of the guys that played a few holes on Saturday in between the rain.
Right.
And he and Jordan Spieth were playing together. They purposely hit on the par 5 on the back 9. They hit their 2 shots in the dark because they knew they were going to be downwind, and they got right to the front edge. And then on Friday in the dark. And then when they resumed, Dustin Johnson went first, and he chipped. And he left it short, and then he didn't mark it quick, and it rolled back down. So he basically, he was on the front edge and made bogey.
Right.
Effectively, 3 shots and a chip. That's the kind of mistake, and the guys were saying it on the television, and sometimes I think they over-criticize, but, why not hit the putter on the first shot out, and you think about, how those things snowball. It's just a fine margin. You think about 72 holes and the difference of 3 or 4 shots over 72 holes for this caliber of player. It's really the difference between winning and losing is really thin.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm curious. I mean, your extensive career in golf and
let's come back over to America.
Let's get back over to America here. But maybe specifically Chicago. I mean, we've had the fortune of playing a lot of good places this year and over the past few years. What are some of your favorite courses here? And not just maybe on the high end, private side, but I know you're an advocate of public, golf. And what are some of your favorite spots around Chicago? People don't have the wherewithal to get over to.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, if you're talking about public courses, we really like Pine Meadow up north. Just a classic through the trees. I tell you what, I just played the other day at Jackson Park.
Yeah.
And that's in such good shape.
Is it really?
It really is. I used to play there years ago, and it was really scruffy, but they do a really nice job with it. We played 18 holes in like 2 hours and 37 minutes.
What?
Walking.
Really?
Because they're short holes, and you just move right along.
I like that place. I played in the Chicago City Amateur there one year. I think like 07 or
yeah, I mean, they take really good care of it.
Is that the one where Bobby Jones played at?
Maybe.
Bobby Jones was there.
100 plus years.
The oldest municipal course west of Pittsburgh.
Really?
Yeah, and it plays like that. There's about 6 holes that are really short, especially for you guys would be drivable. But there's a lot of things you need to do around.
The greens are pretty tough. I mean, greens, some of them are those turtleback.
Yeah, they're really. It's an old school golf course.
Good. That's good. Yeah, I kind of gave up on it.
It depends on your day, But yeah, that's good. I play a lot at Maple Meadows out in DuPage County, which has terrific greens. I really like going there. And the North Shore munis. I mean, we're really blessed in Chicago. When you're talking about, Glencoe, Wilmette, Sportsman's, and you go on and on. Everyone, they're going to reopen Glenview, and you can go out to the western suburbs. I haven't been there in a while, but Village Links up Glen Ellen was always a great golf experience. There's just.
Have you ever played at Ravislow, Herb?
I played there once early in the season. We got to get out there. That's on my to-do list with you guys.
That's always our favorite year to year.
And now we have to find the sweet spot in the pricing because they raise their prices a little bit, and it's about $60.
Right. Well, hey, but if you can get out there for $55 at 7 p.m.
Yeah, but if you find
find your spot.
Golf Now.
Mm-hmm.
If you kind of keep hitting it, we played out there. The last time we did was $27.
Yeah, $27 a ride.
That's really good.
Bad. You can get it in there. That's really good.
And you can cruise around there.
The county courses are very underrated now too because the Billy Casper management thing. They just take such good care of them. Joe Lewis, they got when the ball's rolling on the greens. I mean, I like to putt, and I can forgive you some conditioning on fairways and rough, but if you have good greens,
the greens are the big thing.
Yeah, River Oaks, they're
Where's
fun.
That?
That's down south. It's if you at Harborside, if you just keep going down that highway to 159th Street, another 10-15 minutes. These are not courses that are going to be populated by the north and west suburb guys, but if you live in the city like us, they're really viable.
That's why we like to go south a little bit because there's not much traffic down there in terms of people playing.
And the golf traffic is less too.
And we used to play that way a lot. I haven't been there in a long time, but Glen Woody was a great layout back in the day, and Balmoral Woods. I mean, I played them all because I played a lot everywhere. I could go all the way down the list of Champaign because I used to just stop at all the on my way to Champaign. I would just stop wherever. Have clubs, will travel.
Well, you guys were just back to pro stuff. You were just at the Conway Farms. You mentioned that yesterday. The BMW Championship is coming up. Before that, we saw a lot of golf in Chicago. The Western Amateur is
August 3rd or 4th.
Something like
August
that.
4th. Starts August 4th, goes through the weekend.
Rich Farms and the U.S. Amateur is at Olympia Fields, which we played last week. And you said you played it, and they redid it. You played it in May.
In May, yeah.
And then, of course, the BMW's at Conway. Maybe speak what to you. I mean, for covering this, it seems at least it's a debate that I have and try and let people know. I like the Western Amateur better than the U.S. Amateur. I think it's a tougher test. I think the field is deeper, but it doesn't get nearly the same attention that the U.S. Amateur does.
No, that's right.
It is a. I don't want to. We don't have to get into a huge discussion about it because it's more inside golf than people probably care about.
Right.
But what do you think?
Well, the Western Amateur obviously has a great tradition and a great field. I mean, it's one of the I guess amateur majors.
Sure.
People, I don't know if people really understand that because that level of golf gets lost in Chicago. I mean, we can't even attract sponsorship to keep the senior tournament here. But you're right. It's really good golf, good history. I mean, if you look at the past champions and competitors, The U.S. Amateur, on the other hand, it comes in once every 20-something years, and the format is interesting because, you've got some medal play, and then when you get into match play, I mean, it's a great opportunity. I guess what people need to realize is that you might be seeing the next, wave of great pro players.
So that's what we try to stress every time these amateur events. I mean, we make a big deal about the big events, and these guys are the next wave eventually. I mean, the amateurs at the Western Am, and if you just look, you can look at the past champions at the Western and at the U.S. Am, and it's pretty star-studded.
Contest,
Yeah,
I don't think.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point that you're making, Matt. I haven't thought enough about the Western Am. I mean, and to that point, with my schedule, even though I did cover a lot of golf as time went on at the Sun-Times, my work list was so busy with college football and college basketball. When I did do golf, I would do the majors or the big pro stops, and I really haven't been around the amateur stuff as much here. And I think that would be typical of what goes on in Chicago from a media standpoint and from a fan standpoint. We just have such a broad spectrum of sports here.
Everyone talks about how great a golf city Chicago is, Chicago area. I think it's a great pro golf city, and specifically the PGA Tour. And I think they get people out for that like crazy. In terms of appetite or what I've seen for interest in some of the other sports, from like from the Champions Tour to amateur golf, at least what we've tried to do. I'm not sure the appetite is necessarily there.
Yeah, it's hard.
The last USAM here was in 1997.
Right.
I'm going to hazard a guess where that was.
It was at Cog.
Public course, Cog Hill.
I remember that.
Matt Kuchar.
Matt Kuchar. And they redid the number 2 course at Cog because they needed 2 courses for that event.
Oh, they had both there? Oh, 2 wow.
They had, they obviously used Dubsdread, and they upgraded the number 2 course. And the number 2 course, I always think about that when I play there because the number 2 course has some really good holes, but it has some really basic golf holes.
Is that where we played?
So we played there.
I hate that course.
we just had a bad I think we had a bad experience.
The greens have been aerated, and as you said, greens play a big role. And
it soured
me pretty quickly.
They have trouble with greens at Cog Hill. I don't know number 1 and number 3 have trouble with greens. I don't know why. The ball doesn't roll real well there, and if you like slower putting, then I guess that's okay. But I know what you mean. And number 2 is kind of a hybrid. They have so many holes there now because they built extra holes for that USAM, and they flip them in and out. You never really know what number 2 course you're going to play.
Maybe we played the wrong holes. That could have been it, right?
They just had some very, like you said, plain holes.
Like the first hole, I didn't cover that USAM, so I don't know. But the first hole is like about 300 yards and straight down. I don't know what.
I don't even know if there's a bunker on that hole.
No, I mean those guys could just be putting for eagle.
It's one thing to have a drivable hole with some trouble on it that makes you think about it.
Right.
That hole, it just sits. The green sits there 300 yards away from you with nothing but grass around it, and I can't imagine that being a test for players at that level.
Yeah, whether they use, like I said, I wasn't there. I don't know. Maybe they didn't use that one. I don't know. But yeah, Matt Kuchar, and the other part of it is that Cog Hill is a great venue to have golf at, and it's a shame that they've gotten away from it. It was a great place for the Western Open. It was a great place for spectators.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I mean, I remember because I covered a couple of Western Opens, and Tiger was playing. That was the first time that I ever asked Tiger, interviewed him
for his autograph.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I mean this was after. You know what? In fact, it was the tournament that he had that really long cut streak going, and he played Friday, or maybe Thursday or Friday. He didn't play that well, and he was on that bubble, and he's about to break the streak, and then Friday he grinded down the back 9. And he makes the cut to keep it going. So that was the big thing. Tiger wasn't in contention. He just made the cut. And so the whole, sort of press conference was about, how much does this mean to you to keep that cut streak going? And that gets somewhat overlooked, in his career, just how long, he was always there on the weekend. But anyway, it was I loved going down there for the Western Open. Like you said, tons of room, for spectators to move around. And it's not too crowded, but that you can, get up sort of close on the ropes and see these players. And yeah, I mean, it's sort of a shame that the PGA Tour only, dips in here every other year now for the BMW Championship. But
we got about 5 more minutes here, Herb, before we'll let you go. Will you tell us what your favorite golf tournament in Chicago that you've covered is?
Wow, that's a good question. It's hard to overlook the Ryder Cup that we had here at Medina. I remember that last day walking with Rory and Keegan Bradley. And, Rory had overslept.
He needed the police escort to the first tee.
And we thought that, Keegan Bradley had been playing so well, and we thought that was going to be the magic moment. That was were they the first group or one of the early groups? And then Rory just came right out of the box and just took apart Keegan Bradley. Mm-hmm. That was exciting. I mean, I thought that was probably a highlight, especially walking inside the ropes there, and then it was a little limited in that basis, but so many, it was like a golf who's who. You turn your head, here's Lee Trevino, you turn your head the other way. I remember the first day, I think it was Jim Furyk hit a really nice shot to an uphill par 4. I forget exactly which hole, but it was a rousing moment, and the American side was getting all crazy, and I remember I was walking up the hill quickly to get set to see the putting, and then I heard this voice boom behind me and go, "Here we go, baby, here we go!" And I thought, wow, this guy's excited. And I looked, it was Michael Jordan. He was like cheerleading. He had that assistant captain designation, and it was just, that was great drama. It was really wrenching to see the way the Americans let that get away from them. But
that's as close to what golf has to a Super Bowl would be the Ryder Cup.
The Ryder Cup really
is. Because there's nothing else happening and everyone is focused on that.
And it's great television. It's funny because I think they do better numbers on the television for that than they do for the majors.
I would think so.
Brings in, it becomes, I remember it back in the day when it was, the Ryder Cup was interesting but not over the top. It didn't become like a football game in terms of fans and yelling and everything. And that was nice. It was sort of a classy thing, but it's really amazing how it's become just a great sport.
I think it's helped by the adversarial element. You've got an us versus
manufactured that
the team thing and the match play aspect. It's a neat event. There's no doubt. That would be my number one.
Well, I know we've talked a lot about golf, but we wrapping this thing up.
You can't let Herb go without asking about home brews.
There you go. Yeah. I remember you guys mentioned that. Well, that's right. We had a nice night on the deck one time.
What was that coming back from John Deere Classic Media Day last year?
A couple of years ago, yeah.
And you have a big binder with the recipes.
I got all my recipes.
Of all the home brews that you've tried, notes about them and things like that,
I'm
right?
Approaching the 100th batch. I've been getting ready, trying to figure out which one is going to be worthy. I think it'll probably be the coconut porter. That's become the house specialty here. I learned that recipe from the Maui Brewing Company when I was out at the Maui basketball tournament. Spoke to the brewmeister out there.
That's pretty good.
But yeah, we're going to do that. And I got milk stout on the mind. I don't know why. I've been studying milk stout recipes. But I like to do, the darks are good. I like to do a little bit of everything. Always got to have a good hearty but light Pilsner. Because the young people don't make Pilsners. Pilsner's kind of a lost art on the great. There's so many great young brewers now with all these craft beers, but they don't seem interested in Pilsners, which is weird to me because that should be the classic beer. It is the classic beer from the broad-based brewer setup. Budweiser and Miller products are all on that, and and they turn their nose up at those. And I wrote a column about this a couple or 3 years ago, where I said to Bud and Miller, make a better Pilsner, and I said to the craft brewers, make a better Pilsner, because that's the beer you drink on a hot day after a round of golf. That's the beer that you can drink with any kind of food, without getting into that beer snob stuff. It's like it's the one utilitarian all-purpose beer, and that's why I like to make it, because people aren't focused on it enough.
So what are your top 3 beers that you've made? What are your favorites?
Well, the coconut pilsner has emerged.
Right.
The coconut porter, I should say.
Okay.
I make what I call a honey beer. It's a pilsner based on a centuries-old Budweiser recipe, but I put a couple pounds of honey in it. Gives it a nice finish. It's a light beer, but it has a nice bittered flavor. Great beer on a hot day. Those 2, and I like to make sort of what I call an in-between beer. It's sort of a little bit, not a brown ale, but what's the word I'm looking for? It kind of
amber.
Amber, but not as hoppy as an amber. Just it kind of tastes like a Newcastle, but a little bit lighter than that. So I like to keep a balance, because I like to make some of my friends, they go, oh, dark beer is too heavy. Well, I'll make them a light beer, and other people say, well, I want a dark beer because that's where beer is at, so I try and, do the whole spectrum.
Right. And when will you start selling them on herbgould.com?
Well, I don't know that I'm going to do that. My theory is that I'm waiting for Prohibition to come back.
Right, yeah.
Then I'm going to put a little slit in the door, and if you knock the right way, you can get in.
In that event, we'll probably have to scrub this podcast off the internet.
There you go.
Or that's your premeditated evidence there. But, well, Herb, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks again for taking the time and letting us into your home here for another episode of the Teeing Off podcast.
Well, my pleasure. Anytime, guys.
Plug the website one more time. It's herbgould.com.
That's right.
For updates about golf in Scotland, golf in Ireland, and all
kinds of
golf.
Yeah,
right?
Whenever I get in the mood. But mainly, I do a lot of the international travel stuff. It's great.
And you're also on Twitter. What is
Twitter at Herb Gould, and irreverent and not. When I tweet, I like to think that I have something to say. I don't tweet every little thing.
All right, we'll never find out what you're having for breakfast. Matt Harness is at Harness Preps. I'm at John_Borman. The Teeing Off podcast is at Teeing__off. We'll talk to you next time.
And if this ain't gonna change my mind about falling in love for another time.